having a good morning. We have a special speaker today. So we're going to start now since it's 10. I think more participants will join. So feel free to ask any questions. So we've unmuted and disabled your video for bandwidth concerns. So if there's any questions along the way, feel free to type it on the chat group chat rather. We had a little talk session 2 weeks ago, I think 1.5 weeks ago with Dr. Tyrrell as well. So today he's going to explain more in detail, going a little bit more in depth about viruses and its function, how we can really protect ourselves, talking about many little aspects. We're going to dig in slightly more deeper. But as you know, he's always going deep. He's very, very knowledgeable in the field. So he's the perfect person to talk about it and give a really good, not alternative, like a really good viewpoint, which should be mainstream. So Dr. Tyrrell has been a practitioner of functional and integrative medicine, and he also utilizes nutritive medicine, that's food as medicine. He's a clinical hypnotherapy and integrative psychotherapist as well, and delivering drugless therapies and chemical-free therapies. So his focus is on actually chronic diseases like cancer, and he's received further training in advanced applications in medical practices, USA, Society of Integrative Oncology, Empowered Oncology, Mechanism to Clinical Practice, Australia, and A lot of, he's done a lot of studies, and then he's traveled the world to these conferences and learned a lot about the subject. So, and he's also the chairman of the Institution of Complementary and Alternative Medicine. So today I would like to invite Dr. To talk about this very, very critical topic. So Doctor, are you here with us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. All right, you can go ahead with the topic. And then if anyone has questions along the way, feel free to type on the group chat, as I mentioned. So we're just gonna do a very quick talk, half an hour, and then if there's any questions, we can do it at the end of the 10 minutes as well. Maybe like 20 minutes talk and then 10 minutes Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay. Thank
interesting
you,
topic, Doctor. You're welcome.
Thank you, Tisha. Thank you, Tisha, and welcome everybody. I see some faces who were on the webinar about a week or 10 days ago. So bear with me if we tend to cover some of the same subjects, but we'll try to go a little deeper and understand. I can see people here online from the Maldives, from Kabul, from Australia, and even from Myanmar. So welcome everybody. I can see the names. Right. So initially, I suppose I should start with a small disclaimer to say that whatever I share here is not meant as a prescription. This is mainly for information and educational purposes. And the purpose of that is once we educate ourselves and we understand situations outside us, and when we understand what is happening within us, we can take responsibility for our own health. And it is only when we take responsibility for our own health can we actually deal with any challenges to our health. So let's start with what is an infection essentially. And an infection is essentially the invasion and the multiplication of an external organism, right, in our body. So you have roughly 4 main types. There's the bacteria, there's the virus, then there is the fungi, and there is also parasites, right? Now, what happens is the bacteria itself has a life of its own. Bacteria has a life of its own. And when it enters our body, it is outside our cell. It works outside the cell. And because it has a life of its own, it can be destroyed, as it were. And that is where antibiotics have come in and been used quite successfully in a miraculous way for a long time until we hit the blank wall of antibiotics are not working the way they were or the way they should, right? But the bacteria has its own life. Now, a virus has no life of its own. It has no power over you. That is the main thing, right? It is a small DNA, RNA fragment, right? And it has to get its life and power by entering the human cell. Once it enters the human cell, it replicates and takes over. There are certain viruses which actually, not only now, things like the COVID-19, viruses will go in and will destroy the cell, replicate and spread. There are certain viruses, for instance, which also not only just destroy our cells, but also change the nature of our cells. So we have the Epstein-Barr virus, which leads to certain cancers, like colon cancers. And we have the human papilloma virus, which leads to ovarian cancers. So virus can also take over your cell and destroy it, but it can also take over and mutate it and give you disease from within. Or the last, so essentially there are antibiotics, but there is antibiotic resistance now. And the few antiviral medicines that are there work only in the first 48 hours. They don't work against all viruses. And even they do work against some virus, they are able to manage it, works only within the first 48 hours. So it's useless after that. Now the key thing to understand here is the bacteria has life, so you can kill it. A virus does not have life, so you can't kill it. You cannot destroy the virus in that way. All you can do is to build your immunity in the case of a viral infection, in the case where a virus challenges your health and is out there to give you a connected disease. All you can do is build your defenses, build your immunity. Initially, don't allow it to enter your cell. If it does enter your cell, have your immune response in a way where it can deal with it successfully. Now, in addition, we must also understand that these microorganisms that come from out, in addition to the external ones, we have millions of microorganisms within our body. These are what we call beneficial bacteria, beneficial microorganisms. And for example, just one example, simple example, the bacteria in your mouth and your intestines plays a vital role in good health, right? But even these can change. They can morph into pathogenic microorganisms and cause disease. And how can these healthy, helpful microorganisms become pathogenic? That is when the conditions within your body are not healthy anymore. If your body is not at ease, you get a disease, dis-ease, right? So these are, you can collect toxins and change your environment, and then the beneficial bacteria can turn disease, become diseased. You can become acidic within your tissue instead of being alkaline, which is the state which you were born in. And then even the healthy, helpful, useful microorganisms in your body can become disease, they can become pathogenic. One thing also it's good to remember is that only 41% of what you are today is what you were when you were born. The other balance 59 is what you have acquired from your environment, from what you eat, what you breathe, what you drink, when you touch somebody, when you touch a doorknob. Balance 59 is what you have acquired. Now, what happens when a virus enters the body and enters the cell? This is what is of concern to us today in this situation of a pandemic. Most deaths from Corona-19, for instance, COVID-19, for instance, are due to our own the patient's immune system going haywire. Eventually, it is not the virus that kills you. It is your body's response, the way your body responds to it, what kills you. So again, it is your responsibility. It is your body that is responsible for this. So when a virus enters a cell, for instance, the first thing that happens is we have what we call an innate immune response. It is inbuilt in us. It releases a protein called interferons, and these interferons will interfere with the virus's ability to replicate. If this works, then we have defended ourselves from the virus and there is no further threat. But if the interferon production is low because your vitamin C has been low or your white blood count is low because of various conditions, then the virus will start entering your cells. And this is where you start showing mild symptoms. Symptoms are not the responsibility of the virus. It's your body responding to this virus that has entered your cell. And your body will expel the virus by coughing. When you cough out, it expels particles, virus particles, through the coughing and through diarrhea. So you will either pass it as a diarrhea or you will cough it out. So these are the mild symptoms, the second stage when the virus has entered your cell. The third stage would be if the virus, in case of COVID, enters your respiratory tract and then you start coughing, or it can also enter your gastrointestinal tract and give you diarrhea, right? So the receptors that help the virus latch on to a cell, these what they call ACE2 virus receptors, we have more in the lungs, and that is why there's a greater chance of this particular virus affecting our lungs. Now, at this stage, if we have not coughed it out or purged this out sufficiently, and the threat remains, there is a thing called the adaptive immune system. The immune system now quickly adapts to this new threat, right, and has a very virus-specific response. This builds antibodies. Now, these antibodies then will either destroy the virus and contain it, or will be your protection for the future. So the 80% of people who get COVID-19 have mild symptoms and recover without even knowing that they had it. We will build these antibodies, and those antibodies will ensure that you don't get infected the second time. The fifth stage is the high viral load, where the immune system is overcome. People who work in hospitals are very susceptible to this because they are exposed to more and more viruses. The load is much greater. That is why physical distancing is very important at this stage. You reduce the chances, the number of viruses that can threaten you. And the final stage is, if and when it does go to the lungs, it causes pneumonia. The immune system at that point also will try to clear it out. But often for those who tend to succumb to the disease, it is our own immune system freaking out at this point. We have this thing called cytokines. There is a cytokine storm. The body responds with a huge storm of a response, much more than it should, an overreaction. And what creates cell death is this overreaction, the immune system freaking out and creating a cytokine storm. Now, this is how the technical thing of how a virus works in your body. So now what do we do in terms of building our immunity, ensuring that the interferons are working properly at the correct time, or if not, the antibodies build up so soon. And if not, even if you go to a final stage of the disease, how to ensure that you do not have a cytokine storm where your own immune system doesn't freak out and lead to cell death. We will deal with that in a few minutes, but before that, because I've been talking about the virus which has no life of its own, it is our bodies that get what we call the germ theory and what is called the terrain theory. Louis Pasteur came up with a germ theory many years ago. This identified disease as something that arises outside the body. It comes from outside. A bacteria, a virus comes from outside and attacks you. So we have to search and destroy. This was the theory, and this is the theory that has been accepted by the mainstream and mainstream medicine. So we are always trying to kill the viruses, kill bacteria, destroy them, have things clean. Always the outsider is to blame here. We don't take responsibility. It's nothing to do with us. There's an outsider trying to attack us. So just defend yourself. You've got nothing to do with this. You don't take responsibility. But the alternate view of this is what is called the terrain theory, And this is where that organisms, whether they are bad or so-called bad organisms or good organisms, they morph, they change according to their environment. This means you have to take responsibility for yourself because the terrain is you. The analogy here is that of a dengue mosquito. If there are 4 people in a room and a dengue mosquito bites all 4 and only one person gets it, obviously the mosquito had a certain role to play, but why didn't 3 get it and 1 did eventually succumb to the disease? It is because of their own conditions in their own body and their immune system. It permitted, it gave the virus, the dengue virus, a conducive environment. So here, the second analogy is that our body has become a stagnant pool. And in a stagnant pool, the mosquito larva can emerge, develop, and grow. So the idea about taking responsibility for your health is simply clean the stagnant pool. So the best and most efficient way of maintaining good health, defending ourselves from viruses which seem to be very frightening, is simply to look after yourself. Ensure that your body does not give a sufficient, has a clean environment which is non-conducive to any disease. And so health is about adaptability. So if we can adapt to the changing conditions that we are given in life, then we not only survive, but we develop and prosper and grow. Remember, it is never the strongest or the most intelligent that survived. It was always organisms that could adapt. When the dinosaurs were wiped out, the strongest of them did not continue to live. Similarly, the most intelligent also will not live unless you are able to adapt. Now, coming to the current day challenges, we are stuck at home. The whole world is trying to find an answer. 2020 was supposed to be around the time when we had landed on Mars. We were supposed to be mining deep space objects for rare minerals. We were supposed to, artificial intelligence was supposed to be solving all our problems. But instead of all of this, what are we being told? We are being told, wash our hands, right? This is the same advice that was given to people in 1918, more than 100 years ago during the Spanish flu, which killed 50 million people. They were also told 100 years ago, wash your hands, maintain a distance, keep your windows open, don't lock yourselves in, let the air flow. So this alone tells us how a certain trajectory of science has helped or not helped, right? So again, I think the fact that we have been told to wash our hands, a simple basic thing, and that also to use soap other than other fancy stuff, is a reminder, I think, to all of us that we have to focus on the simple facts of life. And the simple facts of life are what I call the free medicines, right? Drink sufficient water. Why? Why should we drink sufficient water? We are intelligent beings, so we must understand why. We have been just told to drink water, and we don't. Why? Because we are 60% water, like 70% of the earth is water. We are 60% water. Drink your body weight into in kg into 3 in the number of liters. And what does water do? It helps you to detoxify. It controls the fluid balance. It regulates blood pressure. It helps muscles contract. Maintains the correct acid-alkaline balance. With minerals, it ensures that you have proper electrolyte activity, which is what gives you life and keeps you alive. So drink water, the first free medicine. The second free medicine is move your body. Tisha was yesterday talking to another group and was saying, it is not exercise, it is movement. And this is very important. You don't have to exercise yourself until you are exhausted. Never overdo it. Movement alone is sufficient, proper movement, which includes some exercise, but things like walking, stretching, bending, all of that. It is the movement that is important. That's the second free medicine. And what does movement do? When you walk briskly, your foot becomes a second pump to the heart and pumps blood. When you move your body and stretch your body, your lymph system flows. Lymph flows and your immune system is kept at optimal level. So moderate, smart, moderate, move moderately, exercise moderately and have movement, exercise smart, ideally more outdoors than in a gym, because in a gym you are stressed. There is a stress build-up and there is a cortisol build-up. The stress hormone builds up. So it's always better if it is some outdoor activity, outdoor movement. Then of course the third free medicine is sunlight, vitamin D. And what does vitamin D do? Vitamin D modulates and regulates the activity of 2000 genes. It burns subcutaneous fat. It is responsible through vitamin D metabolization for calcium metabolization. It can kill pain. It regulates your body clock so that if you get the morning sun, your body clock is synced with the solar cycle and you will sleep well. Stay in the sun during the day, you'll sleep well in the night. It will give you a restful sleep. And this takes us to, and of course there is also the cascading immune response that vitamin D gives, the sunlight gives. When it falls on your face, around your eyes, especially the morning sun, it regulates and it stimulates your whole immune system for the day, for the rest of the day. It sets your body clock in sync with the solar cycle and gives you good sleep. So then the fourth free medicine is good, uninterrupted, proper sleep. Most important, because it's in the 3 phases of sleep that you detoxify. You go through a self-repair mode where your body repairs itself in good sleep in the 2nd phase. And then in the 3rd phase of sleep, you get into what is called the inspirational phase of sleep, where you get all your bright ideas. Some people say God brought me a message, others say the angels visited me, others say it came from my subconscious. It doesn't matter. You are not open to inspiration unless you have proper uninterrupted sleep and the 3 phases of sleep. And sleep, what it does, it memory and thought consolidation. Your memory and thought is consolidated during sleep. And most importantly, the brain can detox only in deep sleep. The synovial fluids in your spine pump into the brain, wash out the unnecessary toxins, the proteins, which if they collect give you dementia, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, it will wash it away. And this process, this activity takes so much of energy that it can never happen when you are awake. You have to be in deep sleep. It is only then that the synovial fluids will flow into the brain and wash and cleanse the brain, give it a detox. So sleep is important. And I, as always, keep telling in all forums, your bedroom is supposed to be only for 2 purposes: sleep and sex. Don't have your computers, your chargers, your TVs, and everything else under the sun. Sleep is important. I need to also touch on the role of food briefly. I think I'm running out of time, Tisha. Do I have another 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead now.
Okay.
This is
so
important.
Okay.
Take your time.
So going after having gone through the free medicines, let's just let's very briefly touch on the role of food in good health and dealing with viruses. Millions of years. Our RNA, DNA is the same for millions of years. What has changed? The main thing that has changed is food. In the 1940s, food, mainly in the USA and later in Europe, food moved from the kitchen to the lab, right? And in this process, we had these processed foods coming in. The final result of this whole charade or this fiasco is that both the rich and the poor are nutritionally deficient. The rich are overfed and nutritionally deficient. The poor are underfed and nutritionally deficient. It doesn't discriminate in either way. And this is all a result of food moving from the kitchen to the lab and us getting what I call food-like items. So food is important it is the key medicine essentially. And if we need guidelines for food, there are 3 simple guidelines which you use. Firstly, buy fresh food and consume fresh live food. They are rich in oxygen. They have the phytochemicals which are alive, the chlorophyll and other phytochemicals which they maintain. So live, fresh food. Secondly, buy local food. And secondly, consume seasonal food. Why local and seasonal? Not because we support the local economy, because it will also. But the key reason here is that if the plants that grow locally and grow in that season thrive to the point where they can be harvested well, us consuming these products will also enable us to thrive. If the plant thrived in our environment, in our season, consuming it, we will also thrive. It's a simple rule. But you can go well beyond nutrition. Food is not only nutrition, food can be used as a medicine. It can be used in particular combinations to cleanse, to detox, to supplement. And looking at health in one way is toxicity and depletion. You are toxic, you are collecting certain toxins which you don't need, and you are excreting things which you should collect, and you have a depletion. So you can cleanse and supplement and bring health back. So the idea is that you can make your kitchen your pharmacy. This is easier for us in Asia, also in certain parts of Europe. You can make your the kitchen your pharmacy essentially. There are, for instance, flavonoids in fresh food, in certain vegetables, which have now been found. Now they are found essentially in turmeric, ginger, garlic, orange peel, and stuff like that. Some of my patients wonder why I give the orange peel in juices. That is because they contain certain flavonoids. And flavonoids are known to block certain, what is called the 3CL enzymic activity of viruses. Viruses have a certain enzymic activity which enables them to latch on to the cell and enter. Flavonoids in these foods are able to actually block this enzymic activity of the virus, for instance. So food is also a medicine. These are evidence-based and clearly tests have been done. So we can use food as a medicine. And so let me repeat the mantra that I always repeat. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. But when diet is right, medicine is of no need. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. You can take all the medicines under the sun, but the medicines won't work if your diet is wrong. And when your diet is right, you will not need medicines. Right. So now how to maintain, build, and ensure that your immune system works. There are the A, B, C, and D of immunity, which are the vitamins. Vitamin A ensures the structural integrity of your cell and the immune cell production. So when the virus tries to enter your cell, if you have sufficient vitamin A, it has ensured that the structural integrity of your cell is maintained and the virus cannot enter, right? Vitamin B maintains a general overall immune response and protects cells from the oxidative DNA damage, essentially. And vitamin D doesn't allow that overreaction I talked about, where the cytokine storm kills you. Your own immune system has freaked out and kills your cells. It doesn't allow you to. Vitamin D downregulates the cytokine storm. And of course, vitamin D is very specific for respiratory tract infections. And then of course, there's vitamin C, there's antiviral function, there is oxygen saturation. It can treat acute respiratory distress. And I was quite surprised, for the first time in years, I saw in the mainstream media in an article in The Guardian reference to vitamin C in IV form being used in China. It has been used in Wuhan successfully, but nobody is talking about it. The first reference I saw in the mainstream media was only yesterday, and that too also very cautious, a simple mention only. So we have the A, B, C, and D of immunity. And I will quickly end now with a few of the substances we use naturally to deal with infections and viral infections. So for instance, ginger has the ability to stop many viruses replicating. The ability for ginger to for viruses to replicate can be stopped by most ginger can be stopped in most viruses. It can stop most viruses replicating. There is no indication that it can stop COVID-19 replicating yet, but there is for all respiratory viruses, influenza A, the common cold, it is very clear that the virus's replication can be stopped by ginger. Garlic reduces inflammation, it fights fungi, can deal with viruses and parasites. Oregano oil has a very specific antiviral compound called carvacrol. Then basil, the tulsi, increases immunity by increasing the cytokine activity in our body. If we are immune suppressed and our immune system is weak, tulsi, the basil leaves, increases cytokine activity and the efficiency of the immune cell. It has a sedative effect and an antibacterial, antiviral effect. And turmeric, for instance, is now even in mainstream allopathic medicine known as what is called a functional food. It goes well beyond food. It has various other functions. And how turmeric works is 90% of turmeric or 95% of turmeric in our food you pass out in your urine. So modern science has, after much research and millions of dollars of research, found that the way to increase turmeric absorption in the body is to tie it up with a thing called piperine and a fat, a lipid. But all this research was well known. Look at our own food cultures. We make our rasam and our tambung hodi. There is turmeric in it. The turmeric, we add coconut milk. That gives you the lipid. We add black pepper crushed and it gives you the piperine. And our food civilizations knew how this worked, this science worked. We don't need this research and this so-called evidence-based thing to validate what we've been doing traditionally, because now we know that there is a scientific basis for this. So ideally, the one and only way to protect yourself from viruses is to take responsibility for your health, understand what's happening within your body, understanding what's happening around you, take responsibility for your health, build your immune system, because that is the only way you can protect yourself from a virus. That is the only way, if the immune response is correct and modulated, that it can deal with a virus once the virus invades and starts replicating in your body. So gargle twice a day with hot salt water. You don't need these fancy mouthwashers, which also tend to kill the good bacteria. You can do steam inhalations, have rasam and tambung hodi, which everybody knows how to make. Stop smoking if you are smoking. Restrict alcohol, because that alcohol intake sort of slows down and restricts the dispatch of the immune cells. When there is slows down the dispatch of immune cells. And finally, one thing about wheat products and gluten. Traditionally, years ago, our wheat flour had only 7% gluten. Nowadays, it has gone up to about 14–15%, and that is the big change. Secondly, the yeast that we use is no longer the natural yeast. It is more the what is called the instant yeast, and it doesn't go through the whole process. So there is a process. Gluten is broken down into gluten and gliadin. Gluten is the one that gives it the stickiness. Gliadin is the one that gives it the capacity to rise. But gliadin in this kills off the gut of its mucous membranes, of its the skin of it. And because we know that the gut is responsible for 80% of our immune response, it strips your whole immune response about 80%. You stop using wheat products for 3 days, your body gets back to its normal state. Tisha, I think I will stop there.
Wow, that's a great overview, Doctor. You went into a lot of depth as well. You covered a lot more subjects than previously. So we would love to continue these kind of subjects because these are very, very important. And it's an alternate view at the moment, but it's the right one. We absolutely believe in this. This is why Workout Turkey, we always promote natural food, natural movement, and all things that are helpful and safe and effective for the consumer. So I think Dr. gave a very fantastic overview on the absolute truth about this scenario, because there's a lot of allopathy and a lot of preventative, not preventative, more curative tactics being put out there in the media about even with coronavirus. So I think a lot of people had questions about this antigens, not antigen,
Antiviral.
No, but what was it? The
Antibodies.
oh, sorry. Damn it. I forget the name. Anyway, Jeevan asked a question about vaccine. Oh, I forget the word. So okay. Vaccine. So because vaccines are, in fact, not a foolproof strategy. So it takes 12 to 18 months. Very optimistic figure, but then again, there's a lot of considerations about effectivity, and also whether even if you give it to the entire population of 7 billion, even if there's like 0.50% of issues in the vaccine, there's that it can actually be more detrimental than the virus itself. So there's a lot of considerations.
Yeah.
So
and also about the vaccine, Tisha, the issue of vaccine is, let's say, it takes 18 months to develop, by which time in most often the virus has mutated.
Absolutely.
Right? And you've got to run behind another new this thing. So here again, the problem is that you are focusing on one organism instead of not ensuring that your body is in a sufficiently strong state to ensure that the virus doesn't take hold, doesn't enter your cell. And even if it does, you know how to deal with it. You can expel it with a cough, with a diarrhea. Right? For instance, instead of that, the focus is on this one organism. And I mean, we have had 300 new pathogenic organisms identified in the last 50 years alone. How many vaccines can you be giving? When we were kids, there were 5 or 6 vaccines. Now there are about 100 odd vaccines. What is the purpose of this, and where is this? What road are we taking? Is it taking you down? Is a big question.
Absolutely. And then just yesterday, I heard some news that like even if you develop a vaccine, it's actually the vulnerable communities like the elderly and the immunocompromised can actually have more adverse effects with this vaccine. And again, like you said, and the virus.
Yeah, the cytokine storm, and your immune system goes haywire. It freaks out. And what kills you eventually is your immune system having freaked out, not the virus.
Absolutely. And if you look at the entire population, 90% of the population will have very mild or no symptoms at all. So our immune system, innate immune system, has a lot to play. Even the people who have the cytokine storm, I mean, there's again dysregulation in the immune system. So we really need to take a closer look at how, in the long run, I mean, it's not overnight work. It's a lot of work we put in terms of health, movement, our psychology, a lot of things that impair gut integrity, like Shanice mentioned at the last talk. So, I mean, yeah, the gut health. I mean, it's ironic that Hippocrates mentioned 3,000 years ago that all disease starts in the gut. So the food we take and how it relates to our psychology, psychoneuroimmunology, all of this play a massive, massive role. And only now people are getting to realize the importance of these preventative tactics. And it's people like you can really take this message forward. So since we're running out of time, we will answer a few questions. If anyone has, feel free to type it there. But I would urge you to really take this message forward. So we would love to arrange a talk to your group. If you have an office group, or maybe even a family, please invite them, because we are going to share more of these messages. We do a lot offline in our events. We do a lot of collaborative work, especially with Hatch. Today now we're organizing this 4-part series with Hatch, a fantastic entrepreneurship platform. Please do check them out. And then we collaborate with a lot of organizations, professionals like Dr. Chirel and Shanice as well is a big advocate, and they share very similar sentiments as to this alternative view, which should be mainstream in our opinion. So feel free to type in any questions. Yeah, I think we have Shaniki asking any general recipe for effective immunity juice, for an effective, like a juice recipe. What would be your answer?
Well, yes, there is. I can email whoever is interested. I've just given an email address there. It's a simple juice alone is not enough. The trick is to keep changing it every day and doing it over a period of 5 to 7 or 9 days. Because your body, you have to build the body's adaptability, right? Adaptability is the key to any challenge. You need to have the adaptability. So there is a juice protocol which I share with a few people, whoever is interested. I can email. It's a bit detailed to be telling now, but it involves cilantro, that's the kotamali leaves, and we can use it. Use orange, as I said, orange peel, for instance, with carrot, has a set of flavonoids, and which can actually disrupt the enzymic activity of COVID-19, for instance. So we include orange and carrot. We add an egg, for instance, with milk and a lipid. There is a small, I can see some people's faces going sour. Someone who does take that juice, I can see that. So
okay, great. Yeah, I mean, you can contact them.
So there is, I've given an email address. I'll be just send one word asking for the protocol, and I'll be happy to share that.
Absolutely. So
7 or 9 days, which will give you a general immune boost and keep your immune system on its toes, essentially.
That's great. Yeah.
You also have to boost your B12. So the immune juice protocol I give you has a small B12 element as well, because vitamin B12 also protects your cells actually, whereas vitamin A maintains the structural integrity of a cell. Vitamin B gives a coating to the cell and can protect the cell, mainly from sugar. It's mainly used for diabetics, but it also helps in a situation like this.
And also now they see when it comes to the novel coronavirus, COVID, for instance, the having more zinc actually reduces the RNA replication of the virus. So maybe now it's also going mainstream that zinc helps with the the COVID as well.
Yes. There is a question from Inosh. Inosh has a question whether the traditional recipes are still followed in the original form. Yes, largely yes, but not completely sometimes. So for instance, when you are doing the rasam or the tambung hodi, how you grind your curry powders can make a big difference, for instance. So if you use it in a generally a blender sort of a thing where you just mix it up and crush it, right? Then the effectiveness is a bit less. But if you use the traditional stone, the miris gala, for instance, it is known to sort of release certain elements which don't get released when you dry grind, for instance. So this is ideally seen in an experiment that was done in a kurahang flour. Now, kurahang flour is supposed to be good for diabetics, gluten-free apparently. But some labs in the US and UK did some tests on kurahang flour and found that no, there is gluten in it. So how come what were these traditional claims? But then it was discovered that in Sri Lanka, we have what is called the kurahang gala. You take the kurahang, you don't just crush it in a modern flour factory. You use the kurahang gala, which two stones turn in opposite directions and make the flour. And the kurahang flour that is made out of the kurahang gala has no gluten in it. The same kurahang which is made in the modern way into a flour is crushed, has gluten. So it is not only the food item, there is the preparation of it. There is the then the preparation and the combination on it. So there are some small changes essentially, but essentially you get at least 80% of the advantage of the benefit if you use the same ingredients. Currently the same ingredients are being used. Largely the preparation methods are also the same, because they say, for instance, Sri Lanka, there is the hattiya, there is the vattiya and the muttiya. You have to identify which is for what essentially. And it is not just a quirk. It has a very valuable function. It has a very valuable function, just as much as our rasams and this thing, because coconut oil the lipid, pepper, the pepperine, and the turmeric, and bioavailability increases. Now you get curcumin in a tablet, in a capsule, and they say added pepperine, lipid added for bioavailability. And you can just get it in your rasam, for instance. So, and ginger. Ginger is known to stop replication of viruses. So ginger tea.
Yeah, I mean, wow, the Wangidi, I had no idea. That's amazing insight.
So the
There's so
Wangedi
much
on
of
one
wisdom.
hand, the Miris Gala, and the Hattiya, the Vattiya, and the Muttiya.
Wow, amazing. How did you find out about that? Yeah, lots of great traditional wisdom, lots to be shared. We don't have much time, but yeah, I think we would love to organize more sessions like this with professionals like Dr. Terrell and Shaniz, who have very similar viewpoints. And these are information that a lot of people have actually, which are kind of suppressed by the mainstream media, but essential, absolute wisdom. So we need to bring that out. Feel free to contact us. If you have my number, work out LK. We would love to organize these kind of sessions, healthy messages to your community. I think there was one question about also like natural ingredients like Samahan, which is again very processed but marketed as healthy herbal supplements for coughs and flus. So what's your opinion on this, doctor? So can suppression through these kind of ingredients delay the healing process because you need to cough it out, like your body needs to expel viruses? So does this hamper the healing process?
I don't think, I mean, if you, it is all depends on the dosage and how frequently you take it. Even immune responses, it is a matter of time. Those who are immune suppressed, it will take longer to overcome. And the longer it takes to overcome, there is a risk of fatality. So it is an individual. You have to individualize the case. Everyone can't be drinking Samahan every day. I know someone here in this room who has to drink it every day. It doesn't help because your body needs to be kept on its toes. You can't say 720 every day you get Samahan. Because the body then tends to relax and your internal environment changes. Good health is about adaptability. So you have to keep adapting, keep changing it, shifting it. So things like Samahan and all are good, but there is that, as you say, the element of suppression. You need to suppress only things when it comes to a point of a cytokine storm. But this type of herbal, this thing does not has no impact on the cytokine storm. But overall, the ingredients in them tend to help general immunity. But don't overdose yourself. Take a break on and off. So if you take Peya for 3 days, take a break for a week before you take it. If you are taking Vanivel Gatter with hot water, take it for 3 days, stop for a week, and then start again for another 2-3 days. Just keep mixing up and matching it. And so yeah, the question is, does it help get rid of the virus? Some elements of them, there will be certain flavonoids which will have an impact on the viral activity. Only some. But you can't make the claim that, for instance, Samahan has an impact on COVID-19. No, you can't, because a large number of these type of formulation is mainly antibacterial. The effect is antibacterial, not antiviral.
Okay, that's great insight. There's another question from Inosha to follow up, like about Indian cuisine. So we know a lot of people are now saying that it's very well engineered, wholesome food. And then if you look at Indians, they have vegetarian cuisine, but they lead very healthy lives. So all of these ingredients together work to benefit, like you mentioned, doctor.
Yeah, what we have to understand is this. Food cultures emerged in certain civilizations as a response to certain environmental conditions and the genetic predisposition of those people. So the genetics, we evolved differently. We started getting different blood groups. So for instance, certain blood groups are connected to those who were dealing in agriculture. Those certain blood groups are those who are hunters, and stuff like that. So there's a whole heap of activity. So it's best that you understand your local food culture and understand that local food culture evolved as a clear response to the type of human being, the physiology that we had, the environment, the change in the seasons. So the Mediterranean diet, for instance, has been touted for a long time, but the Mediterranean diet does not work here because we do not live in the Mediterranean environment. So the Indian food is good for those who live in India, for instance. And even India, you see, there is and China, for instance, the huge diversity in the regional cuisines, right? It comes to do with the food. If certain types of food grow in that in a certain district, you live in that same district and eat that food, it is beneficial. If the plant thrived, you will thrive consuming that plant. If the plant thrived in a particular season, you having that in that season is meant to, if the hot season, you are cooled down because the plants that you harvest in the hot season are cooling foods, stuff like that. Then you add the spices and stuff like that. So this trend of running behind one day the Mediterranean, then next day a keto diet, then the Indian diet, it is good for us to get information from that for the purpose of information and for inspiration. So we can be inspired by these different examples, we can be informed by these different examples, but stick to your local, try to understand what is happening in your locality. You are there for a reason, and try to understand your body, understand what is around you and use it, and your own food culture. So for instance, the Sri Lankan cuisine is supposed to be one of the best also, given the rice and curry, for instance, for the huge balance in the diet. You get your rice, you have the different color curries, you get your leaves. I mean, almost everything you need is available in a rice and curry, a plate of rice and curry, for instance. Add the tambung hodi and the rasam, and you are fine. But even in Sri Lanka, we have the regional specificity that works largely because of the environment that you are supposed to work in. Of course, if everyone works in air-conditioned rooms in Jaffna, Nuwara and Wellawayo and Colombo, there are impacts on your health. And so you might then go for blueberries from Germany and pistachio from somewhere else because you are now a global village. There is that element. But I think that is a bit of a false narrative. It is part of an evolutionary process probably of the human being. But in a situation when you're up against the wall, stick to your local thing, and that is what will take you through.
Great insights. Yeah, we're approaching the end, but if anyone has any specific questions, I think Ronali had one as well about like having dissecting each recipe and taking it on different days. Maybe you can quickly mention that, Doctor, or if Ronali can.
What was the question? Because I can't scroll on my chat.
Yes, so Ronali asked, would it be effective to have like one day ginger lemon peel, turmeric pepper, and then the second day coriander tea, and then if not an alternative? I think doctor can also give a specific recommendation. I think the recipe you mentioned probably.
Yes, so you need to change flavonoids. So if you want a rule by thumb, essentially for this type of a thing, go by the colors, because the colors of the food are an indication of what minerals they contain. So day one, go for green, day two, go for red, and day three, go for orange, right? Change it that way. So there has to be a method to the madness. Change by the color. And when you are changing the color day to day, the next rule of thumb is involve a leaf, a vegetable, and a spice. So if you have celery with gherkin, the gherkin, add a clove of garlic. If you have beetroot and pomegranate, add cinnamon in case your sugar goes up. If you have orange and carrot, add again some cinnamon or ginger, and you could add milk if you want a hormonal issue. So the key thing is to mix and match it, keep changing it. So Ronali, what you're saying is basically correct, but try to stick to the colors. Nature tells us the color is a color code, to tell us what minerals they contain. And the other thing, of course, is the famous doctrine of signatures coming from European herbalism, is where the shape of your plants, of your fruits, of your vegetables actually correlate to the shape of some organs, and that they are good for those specific organs. If you take them as food, they are good to maintain those organs. They can be taken as medicine. For that, you have to learn nutritive medicine. So, for instance, celery is good for your bones because the stalk of celery looks like a bone, orange for the breasts, olive for the ovaries, carrots for the eyes, because you cut the carrot and a side section of the carrot is the exact side section of your eye. Then the kidneys, you cut a kiwi into two, and the kiwi, the side section of the kiwi is the side section of your kidneys. Walnut, you cut a walnut in the middle and it is the exact cross section of the human brain. So the doctrine of signatures will tell you which plants can correlate to the different organs. Firstly, to maintain as food. Secondly, to be used as medicine.
Doctrine of signatures, very, very interesting theories. Okay, thanks a lot for joining, everyone. If you have any questions, yeah, feel free to contact me or Doctor. Would love to take this message forward. If you have any queries, I don't know, maybe we can take. Okay, it's not a question. Thank you. So drink the rainbow, exactly, Ronali. Yeah, so we would love to invite you for our next sessions as well. We're organizing with Hajj on the 15th and 17th. We're talking about yoga, how we can increase through breathing, increase our lung capacity, immunity, and then Sukanya on the 17th, we'll talk about building inner resilience. So we'll be exploring a lot more chapters, so feel free to follow the pages. And also I share the link of the blog workouts. There's a lot of links for documentaries, global insights into all these kinds of healthy living, natural lifestyles, natural food, natural movement. So you feel free, now that we have a lot of time in our hands, I think it's great to explore this. So all of this is condensed in one platform. So it's all free, feel free to utilize it. And there's people like Doctor who are doing great work to the communities. I would really love to thank you on behalf of everyone here. Yeah, so yeah, I think we got a few more. Okay, not a question. All right, yeah. So any specific question, feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to give you these resources. So thanks a lot for joining. Yeah, I mean, Doctor does a lot of work, even healing long-term chronic conditions, like I mentioned in the beginning. So Doctor is focusing a lot on chronic diseases like cancer, arthritis, psoriasis, you name it, like different organ issues, diabetes. So all of these actually have natural cures. This is not mainstream, but then there's a lot of evidence. Doctor has cured many patients. There's a lot to explore in terms of natural therapy, nutritive therapies. So feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to organize sessions as well for your corporate groups. Like I mentioned, very, very happy to take this message as much as possible because it's, we feel it's very essential. So thank you very much, Doctor, for what you're doing. There's a lot of great comments on the chat. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. So hope you consider these healthy messages and do join us next time. We'll be doing a lot more sessions. Thank you for the fantastic insights yet again, Doctor, and hope to see you again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.